Welcome to this chapter of the St. Andrew Society of Detroit's Oral History Project. This project was the undertaking of the Charles S. Lowe Memorial Library Committee to capture members' recollections of the Society. Recorded in November of 2025, these are the recollections of Rod Harris, who joined the St. Andrew Society in 2002. Rod has served as Second Vice President, First Vice President, Vice Chair of the Trustees, Webmaster, Chair of the House Committee. Rod was on the team that searched for and selected the Mountain Jack's restaurant as the location of the Kilgore Center in 2009. In 2010, along with Trustee Chair Ian Hunter, Rod interviewed and hired a hall manager, and a couple of years later they hired our current hall manager, Kathleen Thompson. As Vice Chair of the Trustees, Rod chaired the newly formed House Committee to address the needs and maintenance of the Kilgore Center, and Rod stepped in to handle Society website responsibilities and developed and chaired the Website Committee. Well, Rod, with an introduction like that, it sounds like you've done just about everything, and thank you for that. How did you first learn about the Society? How did you get involved?
Well, it's quite interesting. My son was at CMU and he did the Burns Nights at the Elma College Highland Games. And so we always would go to that. And that was in the 90s. And what happened was my wife and my son went to the Burns meeting in Ann Arbor and met Joe Pattison, who was the president of St. Andrews at the time. And she invited my son and my wife to join. So we came and they joined in the spring of 98. And so I just came along all the time, and finally I decided, I've got Scottish heritage, I'm going to join. And I joined in 2002.
How did you get to be so active in the Society?
I know that Scott David was president, and he asked me if I wanted to be involved, and I did. I was involved certainly in the games, but not in the actual Society activities and business. And so he said, would you be interested in running for second vice president? And I did. And I won that. And one of the activities of the second vice president's responsibilities, I should say, was to do an audit on the Society. I was in systems my entire career. So I went out and I worked with a couple of people, and we set up programs, one for the Society and one for the games. And since I was second vice president, I did the audits for those the next 2 years, I think. And then subsequently moved up to the first vice president just about 2008, 2009, just before we bought the building.
For either of those audits, for the games or for the Society, is there anything that surprised you in either of those audits?
Yeah, I was surprised on one thing. I went back to find past audits, and there were none. I started from scratch. So we buttoned that down and had a fair amount of help with the treasurer and the secretary, and came up with the audits that I think were used for a few years. But I also recommended that every 5 years that we have an external auditor come in and do an audit of the Society. I don't believe that has been done, but just as long as we have someone annually looking at the Society's financials, both games and the Society directly, I think is very, very important.
We'd mentioned in your opens that you shopped around looking for a location for the Kilgore.
Bob Giles, there was Ron Cunningham, and a few others that we did shop around and look for a new home. And it was kind of interesting. The Italian club, the Danish club, those clubs that we went to were running just fine. But one of the interesting things was that in each case, we asked them if they had their manual, their operating procedures manual that they went by to manage their hall. One or two of them said, I think we've got one. And one said, yeah, we've got one, but it hasn't been used or updated in years. And we thought that was kind of interesting because that should be a requirement for having a hall. You need an operating procedures manual.
Now, before we found this hall, you were looking around at other places first for a possible location. Tell me about that, and then what happened when you saw the Kilgore Center here, as we call it now, and when we purchased it.
Oh, the Mountain Jacks here was nice. It was really, really nice. But we went the west side, and there was one interesting one that was the UAW hall that was across from the Wixom Ford plant. that had closed. And it was a very nice hall. And it was a hall. It was not obviously a restaurant.
What did it feel like once you all found the Mountain Jacks? And this was after the fire.
That is correct. It was a challenge. I mean, it was a restaurant, and they had cubicles and that. They had a small area in the main portion of the hall, and our conference room now was for private dining and things like that. The office was that. We looked around and said, "Boy, we got a lot to do," and it was amazing how well it worked out.
Now, when the society bought the building, was the roof restored and repairs made from the fire, or did we buy it and then fix it up?
Some of the repairs were there, but we found out that there was a lot more that needed to be done, and we did replace the roof at that time.
How did everybody feel? We bought this Mountain Jacks, we changed the name to Kilgore Scottish Center. What was the feeling about members at that time?
It was amazing. It really felt good. I know that sold the hall downtown in 1990, I believe it was. And it was just that people didn't want to go down there anymore, and it was a long distance. But I think it brightened up the society. They were very excited about it because we were going to the Commonwealth Club and the White Heather Club for our members' meetings and things like that. And I know that the trustee meetings were in an office building in Southfield. Finally, we just felt comfortable. We felt we were settled into something that we can use, and it was an amazing feeling.
Would it be safe to say that once we had the Kilgore Scottish Center and it was our home, did that help at all with membership growing?
When I first joined, you had membership that would be coming in 3 times a year, and we'd have 2 or 3 members coming in at each one of the initiations. But for the last 5-6 years, we have had an amazing increase in new members coming in. And I know that our memberships meetings were in the past maybe in the 60-70 member range, and now it's 100 plus. And that's been extremely pleasing.
What do you think caused the increase of membership joining the St. Andrews Society, Rod?
Location could be in part some. I think the games is a big draw. I really do. I think COVID did, because once we were put into a situation where we couldn't meet directly, everybody, not just society, and I think people just felt afterwards that they just want to get out and do something. It's been very, very refreshing. I know that I was responsible for the website. I picked that up from Judd Cole. And at that time, there was only one website. It was the Games website, Highland Games, and it was only about 2 or 3 pages, just a kind of a splash of the what we did as Highland Games. And then we were at a conference in Chicago, and the Chicago Scots had their website. I was talking to Bob Giles, and he said that, we need to get one for here. And so he got online when we were in Chicago and picked up the DetroitScots.com website. We then started building that. We went out for bids and got a bid from one gentleman, Jeff Ashburn, and he helped me build the Detroit Scots website. Not to where it is today, but certainly it was there. And then we went out and said, okay, we've got the games, and then we got the building. We need a website for the Kilgore Center in 2011. And that's when we went out and started developing, put out another bid, and started the Kilgore website.
It is well known that the Harris clan has just been wonderful in helping with the Highland Games, particularly with the closing and the teardown of the games. How many years has the Harris clan been doing that? How many family members involved? Tell me about that.
Well, once I joined in 2002, my wife joined in 98. At that time, my children were closer to home, and I talked to them and said, okay, I went to the games, and I could see that, it's interesting. Everybody thinks of it as Friday night and Saturday. If you're a St. Andrews member, it's Monday through Sunday. And I noticed that afternoon when it was closing, everybody disappeared. I said, okay, we need to get more help. So I got my daughter and her husband, and my son Mark, and my son Chris, and then my grandkids. They were in it, my 3 grandchildren. But we all stayed after it. We just pack up and start tearing down the tents and things like that. But this has been going on since 2000.
About how many family members altogether?
I think it's about 9. And it really was a big help. And we've got it down pretty well. And my grandson in particular works in the tent, or in the truck right now with Dan Nelson. They kind of keep that straight. They know exactly what to do.
If anybody would like to temporarily become a member of the Harris clan and help out, I suppose that would be okay with you?
That would be okay with me, for sure. Absolutely.
Oh, good, good. Now, clans. Well, what is your tartan? What do you usually like to wear?
Interesting as you say that. I have the Muir ancient plaid. It's a little bit softer color in that. They always say that you always know who your mother is, but you may not know who your father is. So I followed my maternal lineage back to my maternal grandmother, whose last name was Muir.
Over the years you've been a member, have meetings changed, and if so, how?
The format remained fairly the same. I think that there's more voice in some of the executive committee meetings. There's more input from the committees. I think that's very important. And I know now that we have the Kilgore Center, there's a lot of input from the House Committee, which the vice chair of the trustees has that responsibility. And so there's a lot of help that way. And so the trustees obviously are the financial arm, and they have to manage the funds and how it's spent.
Are meetings more formal than you remember when you first joined?
Well, I think they're less formal, and I think probably part of that is to do with the Zoom meetings. I would almost like to, in some respects, have the meetings together again, just that synergy you receive from a gathering of officers. But I don't think that will happen. I think the Zoom is here to stay.
How about membership meetings? Are they more formal or less formal?
They are pretty much the same, I think.
Ron, tell me about the technology around the Kilgore Center here, the audio-visual, the security.
Well, it's quite interesting. What we found out, obviously, as being a restaurant, they did not have any of that in the building at all. And that we decided that we needed microphones, we needed speakers, we needed televisions. If we're going to rent the hall, we certainly needed that technology for microphones and things like that. And we created this audiovisual closet, as I'll call it. The people that came in had to climb through the ceiling and everything else in the conference rooms and that. We put all this technology in so that we could have decent technology for our own occasions, certainly, and for rentals. We needed that. Then also we decided we got a pretty important building here, so we put in security cameras. Again, that was a challenge, just getting them placed where we wanted them. And we probably are in the need of updating our technology today, especially on the electronic side for microphones and that. And at that time, we maybe want to add the live streaming so that members who cannot make the meetings could at least sit in and watch them.
Well, Rod, what would you like to see for the society?
Well, it's quite interesting. There was a large donation of $25,000 from Joseph Muir, a past member of the society. But this $25,000 donation would be designated to be used for electronic sign outside. The sign we have right now is okay. It shows our building, but it does not give a display. We cannot use it for other means as far as displaying parties, occasions, Burns nights, games, things like that. At that point in time, it was probably in 2018-19 that the monies was donated, and it's been sitting in budget. We do need to have an electronic sign.
What do you enjoy most about being a member of the St. Andrews Society?
Well, I just like the camaraderie, the getting together with everyone and seeing them. It's a good feeling. We all have a common interest, and that makes it good.
For new members that become involved, either helping with the games or joining in committees, what benefit is it to them to become active?
You get out of it what you put into it, really. I think it should almost be a requirement that you work at the games or you work on something at some point in time. But certainly certain activities, whether it's Burns Night, the Kaylee, games, whatever, there should be some requirement that members work those activities.
And would it be safe to say that the ones that do work activities, those that do participate, are the ones that meet other people quicker, make friends quicker, becoming...
Absolutely. They'll get more out of it by becoming involved. They really will.
This presentation of the St. Andrews Society of Detroit's Oral History Project was produced by Van Rohr for the St. Andrews Society Library Committee under the direction of Dennis Clements, current chairperson, and Shelby Brown Rohr, current St. Andrews Society of Detroit's communication director. The St. Andrews Society is Michigan's oldest charitable organization, founded in 1849. Salancha.